We are super behind on Gozyuger. We're going to recap and review episodes 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let's talk about it.
How's it hanging, freaks and geeks? My name is Jim Kelly, and you're watching Legacy of Nerd. You better recognize.
Welcome to the Legacy of Nerd. My name is Daniel, and we have been super behind on Gozyuger. We broke some of the Power Rangers news last week. We talked about some of the comic books, but now we're here to talk Super Sentai. We're going to go over it. I've caught up on all the latest episodes. Now, I will have a cough. I'm getting over a little chest cold, but so if I cough, I'm not going to edit this thing, so we're just gonna have to deal with me coughing. So we're gonna go ahead and start with episode 3. So episode 3, Haru is still having issues with his job, but we meet the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is actually Don Mamaro, the Red Dawn Brothers Ranger. So he is super popular in the community. He is considered a hero. He stops a whole thing with the aliens attacking. And this episode 3 is all about being super popular. Well, while they all go back to their little cafe base, we meet Gozyu Black for the first time. And looking back at the rest of the episodes, this scene doesn't really make a lot of sense because we just meet her and she gives some exposition, like, you know, who the Prime Minister is and how hard it would be to getting close to him. We do learn that we do learn that Gozyu Yellow is trying to collect all the rings, and essentially that is all of their goal, to collect the rings for Gozyuger, and they're all just sort of like teaming up until that happens. We meet her, and she did reveal, like, you know, she actually doesn't reveal a lot. She just kind of reveals that she is kind of like, you know, princessy maybe, you know, hotty toddy, you know, really full of herself. And we see from that, basically that's it. And then she just kind of introduces herself, is kind of cute, and then just like takes off. She does like this weird little, oh my gosh, I have to be somewhere today, and she just takes off. So they all go on their thing to find out who's the super popular of the group. Blue, of course, we know that he's a K-pop artist. And then, you know, the bad girl guy, I can't remember her name at the moment, but the one, basically just her. She becomes like a really big fan of Blue when he is basically trying to show how popular he is. This whole episode kind of revolves around Don Mamaro, Don Brothers Red, and Gozyu Wolf, and teaching him how to be popular. And this whole thing just ends up being a scam. He just does it so he becomes more popular by showing other people that he's helping someone become more popular. So it's this whole weird kind of silly thing. But we do see a battle, and the main battle is going to be between Gozyu Wolf and Don Mamaro. We have him, and we learn that Don Mamaro actually has one of the Sentai rings, and that he uses it as a power-up. I think he uses Bokinger. Oh, you're going to have to quote me on that. But we do see that. One thing that we do see in this episode, we do see Gozyu Blue is, oh my God, Gozyu Leon. And we see his armor for the first time on the Tegasword, and it looks good. Like this whole, I love the whole Tegasword sequences. I think they look great. But as I said in my toy review, and when we revealed what the toys were going to be for Gozyuger, this is just my favorite configuration altogether. Now him, not so much. He's shady, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So he just happens to fight the bad lady that I can't remember her name right now. I know the other guy's Fire Candle, but the funny thing is she's gonna have a bunch of like merch of the Blue Ranger in her mecha, and the Blue Ranger himself kind of ruins it, and it's just a funny little moment. But she gets really mad at her, and it makes her actually more focused, and she actually starts winning the mecha battle for a second, which I thought was pretty funny. Going back to the Don Mamaro fight, the aliens kind of like, or not the aliens, but I guess like the other dimension evil people also decide to attack this whole thing. Obviously, there's a mecha there. This whole thing is weird. I'm going to talk about this at the end, about just the villains in general. But we do get a good glimpse, and we find out that Yellow actually is in possession of the TyrannoRanger Sentai ring, or which is O Ranger in Super Sentai. So we find out that he has that ring and he's able to turn into it. The whole thing with the shield looks really good because we notice that his ring is yellow here, and it just fits the whole aesthetic of the O Ranger look. And he uses some sort of like pyramid thing to capture Don Momotaro, who's usually one of his Sentai rings as a power up. And basically, we find out the challenge is that Don Momotaro wins the challenge because he is the most popular, and so he is number one in being most popular. This episode ends. I think the way the episode ends is better than how most of the episode is. Now, Don Momotaro being a part of this is actually important for the future episodes, but we do see the introduction of Gozyu Eagle here. We get our first look. He shows up flying, kind of separating Don Momotaro and Gozyu Leon. And then we find out that Gozyu Unicorn, I think that's her name, Gozyu Black, I think her name is Sumino. She works for Don Momotaro as his private investigator. And then the other Gozyugers, they call them the Ring Warriors. We see her here. They all learn that she is in possession of the black unicorn ring right here, which they're all like, oh my god, there's another one of these rings. And they're just all confused. At the end of the episode, we see Gozyu Eagle show up again, and he demorphs into an old dude, which is not what we were seeing in the promos and all this. This is technically the Gozyu Eagle, and we learn more about that in episode 4, which we're going to talk about now after I cough. So episode 4 is a pretty silly episode, but we do learn some important points here. So the reason Gozyu Eagle is old is because he is old. He's 80-something years old. He's a grandpa. And his wish is to become young again and basically become a party animal. The green ring just sort of shows up in his garden one day. He puts it on. He makes his contract with Tegasword, becomes young, and he's super excited. But he's realized he's young and he lives with his family and he kind of can't be there anymore. So he goes off and he turns into Gozyu Eagle, and we meet the other Gozyugers. Now here is interesting because we see him old again, and we find out that he's going to go back and forth from being young to old. So here, once he eats a little bit, he turns young again. So he has to re-energize. And the way that he can stay in his eternal youth is to collect all the Sentai rings. So we get past that point. He goes to school. He realizes that his grandson is actually in his class. And so that becomes an issue as well. Here is a good little part of the episode that I really enjoyed. Gozyu Unicorn meets the prosecutor for her little sister's kidnapping. So that's a good important point. Now we find out that he has the Ryo Soldier Red Sentai ring, and he morphs into Ryo Soldier Red and they fight. He sees that she has the Gozyu Unicorn ring. He sees that she has the Gozyu Unicorn ring, but what he also notices is that she can't engage. She can't morph. So like her ring and her morpher are useless. She can't do anything with it. Don Momotaro actually comes and saves her and beats Ryo Soldier Red. Now, what we find out here is interesting. When one of them is beaten in these situations, the ring will leave the person that it belonged to, and their Tegasword morpher will actually disappear, and the new person now has possession of the ring. It's like Highlander. If you guys have ever watched Highlander, this is very much like that. So the rest of the episode goes on, and we see Gozyu Eagle continue to try to fit in, but he is a very, very bad trying to become a party animal, as you would say. He he gets this opportunity to sneak onto the roof at the school, and he totally just like, nah, I don't want to do that. That's the wrong thing to do. And he's already getting labeled as kind of like a loser. One thing about this actor, I truly believe that his true age is 80 something. He's doing like a really, really good job in portraying an old person who is trying to be young. I have to say that. Like, I get that. So he talks more to his grandson. He finds out from his grandson that his doesn't really like his grandfather himself, because his grandfather is very old and stubborn and set in his ways. So we go on with the rest of the episode. Obviously, they get attacked. One the other dimension evil guys come down. Of course, they steal a person. They go into the monster. It just goes through that whole kind of thing again. We see them fight. We see them all turn into, I guess the deal here is who is the number one party animal. And so they're all put in this position where they are all being forced to sort of party and see who can party the most. Obviously, Green is trying to shine at this time. And we see him morph for the first time on screen. We saw him demorph before. We never saw him morph. Now we see him morph. He has a really cool, awesome sequence here. Looks great in green. I think this shade of green on the Gozyuger is really, really good. I really enjoy it. And then, of course, he does the battle. Now, this is the first time we see a battle that's not Gozyu Wolf. It's going to be Gozyu Eagle. It's the very first time that that's going to happen. And interesting, I have to say. Interesting. So, he, of course, is trying to be the number one Gozyu, number one party animal. So we see him, free everyone, and then he kind of like does this little dance right here, and it's cringy. It's super cringy. Again, this is a show meant for children. It's meant to be very, very, tongue in cheek, and it really is. So, the monster ends up thinking he is the biggest party animal, so he sort of wins. And then, of course, we get our mecha fight. Now, the one thing about this mecha fight that is really cool is that one thing we get verification, there is only one Tegasword. There is one Tegasword, and then there's different armors, right? And we see them. What's cool about this is that we see the different armors kind of come in and out to play. So we start with red, right? And they have this cool part where blue comes in and blue takes over there. And we now see the blue armor, and we now have blue that's piloting it, right? And then they needed the yellow armor, so the yellow comes in, takes over, and becomes the Tyranno, right? And I thought it was a really cool sequence where they were like jumping in and out of the armors, which I thought was really cool. Of course, red doesn't necessarily have armor, it's just the Tegasword, it has the head. And then we see green sort of finish the day, save the person inside the monster, and that's pretty much it for the episode. He does send a note to his family at the one, because they all said earlier in the episode that their grandpa was missing and it was causing a lot of turmoil in their family, and he lets them know not to worry. We do get to the very end of the episode, and we do learn that Gozyu Unicorn is actually looking for her little sister. We see the picture of her, and we just kind of got the tease at the beginning. We know from the promos, but this is what her goal is, which leads us to episode 5. So episode 5 picks up where episode 4 leaves off. We see Gozyu Unicorn, and she's meeting two guys like at a mall or something, and they're very like smitten of her, and she's doing her whole like, I'm cute, I'm pretty thing. But then she sits them down, and we see her talk to them about like, what do you know about this kidnapping? And they just get caught off guard. It turns out they're witnesses. They say in a trial somehow. But yeah, that part didn't really make a lot of sense to me. But she essentially kind of uses them for information. Doesn't go well. We do see that Don Momotaro did give her the Ryo Soldier Red Sentai ring as sort of just in case, but knowing that she has not been able to morph herself. So this episode is really focused on Gozyu Unicorn. She goes back to the cafe. She's meeting the rest of the team, and she basically says she wants to join them so that she can, they can all team up together to try to find all the rings. So we find out that she was a prior cop that she chased down. She was so obsessed with one case, which basically is the kidnapping of her sister, that it got her in a lot of trouble, and she got kicked off the force. Of course, they go to this monster. They're going to have another number 1 battle. I think this is who is the number 1 meddler. And while they're all doing their thing, she actually steals the rings for the rest of the Gozyugers, and she just like takes off, dude. Like, and it seems so ugly. I don't know. Like her introduction it's very very unlikable, even though we know she's doing it for a good reason. She just it's not a good look. So they get back to the warehouse where Gozyu Wolf has cornered her, and the monster aliens, whatever they are, attack, and they basically tell her that oh well, let me say, the monster actually has evidence. He has I guess the little band that her sister wore when she was missing. So if you see it here, it's the same one that is in the picture that they keep on showing here. So we see that from that. Okay. So we see, basically he says, I will give you this and the evidence that you would need for the kidnapping if you kill Gozyu Wolf. And like she's gonna do it. Like she is like, this is about my sister. I need to find out what happened to her. Like she is ready. She is ready to do it. And Gozyu Wolf is like, if that makes you happy, but I don't think it will. So basically, she remembers she has a memory of her sister. It kind of makes her break down a little bit, and she decides she's not going to kill him. The alien, destroys the band. But in that, she gets the ability to now be able to engage. The ring now fully accepts her. We see it kind of right there. Just kind of do that. And she is able to transform into what I think is the best suit of Gozyuger. Like, she is black, and this all works. Like, this works really well. She is the best looking Gozyuger. Look at that. That is so good looking. Now, they do fight. She does the battle of the number one meddler. She basically says, she was born to meddle, I guess. They all defeat. And we see the Gozyu Eagle mecha take over. And, it looks good. I think it looks good. I think it's my least favorite of the mechas that I've seen. But overall, I think it does it well. The color, I think the color green that they chose is really good. So we see that here. Of course, we beat the large mecha again, win the day. She now is back at the cafe. She formally joins the team. And she says like she does have one little piece of evidence. And that little piece of evidence is that she knows that the person that had something to do with taking her sister has gray eyes. Then we get to cut to scene where we see Blue signing a picture of himself with gray eyes. And he's signing it for his fans who make a comment that we have this picture of you when you had gray eyes, but we know you that basically you don't anymore. And the episode just pretty much ends there. He walks into the cafe and she's very serious about finding out who has the gray eyes. So it's like clearly Blue has something to do with her sister's kidnapping, and that episode ends there. Episode 6, and I feel like now that we have the introduction of all the main Gozyuger team, that we are kind of past a lot of these. I think it's getting more serious now what is going on with this series. So it kind of starts off with Gozyu Wolf, who is basically like giving up on trying to pay rent and all that, and he's living in the Tegasword. Yellow's clearly not happy about that. We actually find out that Don Momotaro, the prime minister, has been forced to resign because he uses his sword as Don Momotaro, and that goes against his basically non-violent act, which is funny. This episode is Power Rangers Super Sentai Go Squid Games. I'm already telling you that. This is the Squid Games episode. So they get invited. We find out that the Prime Minister, Don Momotaro, is now in league with the evil monster Elder Dimension aliens. And he is challenging them for the rings. And they have to meet him at this house to do all the challenges. Which Red is not happy about because like this dude just like totally like double-crossed. We thought he was good. And I think Black is really upset about it too because she's like, I worked for the dude. So the first challenge is tag. They have to play tag. So they are all tagging all the people here, and they win, obviously. The next episode, or the next challenge, is dodgeball. And they play dodgeball. Yellow uses super strength. And yeah, they win. The next one is play house. Now, this all sounds silly. But now we get some more exposition. Here, they're all playing house, and Red is not really playing, doesn't really want to play. But the rest of the team go outside to go fight the evil other dimension monsters and stuff like that. And Red is stopped by Don Mamataro, who tells him, we're not done with the challenge yet, we need to play. So the others are fighting outside while they're getting ready to play house. But he starts playing, he brings out, like, they call them hamburger steaks. But that brings up a memory of his mom, and so that he like sits down and listens to Hiro's story. And basically we find out that Hiro had a brother, an older brother, and they were playing in the woods, and they wandered off, and they eventually ended up in another dimension where there was monsters. It was a big group of them, and so they get away, they all run away, and they're gone for 10 years. He loses his brother. He loses this lady who was taking care of him. That meant a lot to him. And then he finally makes his way back to the regular world and finds out that his parents had basically moved on and now have 2 other boys. So he basically doesn't have a place in the world. Don Mamataro is like seriously moved by this. He basically says like since he's young, these things have always been expected of him, and he's always been looked up to. So he didn't really get to have a childhood, and all he wanted to do was play tag, play dodgeball, and play house. And he really connects with Gozyu Wolf here, but they're still doing the challenges because he does still want their rings. So they go outside. The rest of the 4 are obviously losing. They go out. Don Momotaro is now going to fight with them against the evil aliens, and they fight. We do see Gozyu Unicorn here, and Gozyu Unicorn now has the coolest working. I still think Blue is the best looking, but Unicorn has different features to it that I think is really cool. So we see the Gozyu Unicorn in action, and it can have like warrior mode, and it can have like, I guess, horse mode. So this is warrior mode, which looks really cool. We'll see. Okay, right here, we'll get to it. And it actually turns into like a horse mode, which is really cool. I like that it has a different mode than the other ones. So it does something completely different, which I did pre-order this toy, so I'm definitely going to play with both modes as well as with that. But I thought that was a really cool feature. Of course, they win. Don Momotaro, helps them beat the evil monster aliens. But then they realize that they have one more battle, and it's between Gozyu Wolf and Don Momotaro. And they basically have a showdown, sort of like samurai style, and Gozyu Wolf wins. Here we learn that, here we see that Gozyu Wolf acquires some new, we get the Don brothers, we get Vulcan, I believe, Time Ranger, and Bokinger. So he's going to get 4 rings right here. And he goes on, and we now see like the Prime Minister, he's like, I'm out of the battle for rings. But Gozyu Wolf lets him know, like, I am here now to be what your true wish is going to be, is I'm going to be your best friend. I thought the battle was over. Now, this is what's gotten very, very much attention online. Because the mecha just comes back up, and we see Unicorn freak out. And who do we see appear? We see our guy, Daizyujin, appear in a cloak. Now, you guys know him as the original Mighty Morphin Megazord. He's right here in all his glory, and he's there presumably to save the day. But he's not alone, because, of course, Daizyujin has TyrannoRanger piloting him from the cockpit. And we see TyrannoRanger here. It looks like the Super Sentai made an all-new suit. It's very bright, very shiny, looks great. And this is basically where we leave off until episode 7, which comes out next week. So I think watching the 4 episodes together, I think it was better for me that way, because each episode has been like, I know these are designed for kids, and I get that, but it's been like a lot of silly, like filling in a lot of the silly, right? Seeing the new mecha form, seeing the new Sentai rings, Ryu Soldier, seeing O-Ranger, just seeing all the different ones, I think was really cool. The Black Ranger, Gozyu Unicorn, I think has the most captivating story. Definitely wants to know what's going on with Blue and what he has to do with the kidnapping. I think watching it all like that and kind of taking out the silliness of it, like, this show is kind of dark. And I don't really see the point of the monster alien things, dimension monsters. Like, I don't see the point of them. I think it would have been better just having the whole Highlander thing and just having each episode them fighting new Rangers to collect the rings. Like, I know we got like, there's 50 years, right? So technically we should have like 50 rings. I know there's probably not 50 teams. Well, I think there is 50 teams. There's 50 teams. So there should be able to fill up 50 episodes with different of the Reds and be able to bring them in. And not, I don't know if do not know if the monsters were necessary in this whole series so far. So far, I do not know if it was necessary. Do like Red's backstory, do like Black's backstory. Green's is a little silly, but, you know, I think the acting there with the younger Green is really good. And Yellow, I just don't think we've seen enough of Yellow. But what I'm seeing so far, I do like. I think it's easier for me to watch in bulk rather than watch one episode at a time, because I really focus on, like, we are the number one thing here. And I don't think that is working for me in particular, but I'm really excited to see how TyrannoRanger. Next episode, we're supposed to have all the dino-powered Rangers come in, and they're going to work together or fight each other, or I don't know. But they're all going to come in. I think that's going to be really cool to see, and that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited to see the Sentai rings in place, and I'm excited to see all the other things, like the little cameos and just like all just the fandom bait that you could have in this, and honestly, I'm digging it. I'm digging all of that, but let me know in the comments what you guys think. Are you enjoying the series so far? What do you think about Gozyu Black and her backstory? What do you think about the others as well? What are you hoping to see from the rest of the series? Let me know in the comments, and we'll see you all next time.